All right, I've got a great guest today to talk about what's going on in the United States, what's going on with our wacky politicians, and the hypocrisy that we have to witness on a daily basis. You are probably familiar with today's guest, Andrew Klavan. He is a contributor over on the Daily Wire, and I'm excited to have a conversation with him today. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
So, just recently, Representative Liz Cheney said that she's considering running for president in order to save America. Like the most cliche thing that every politician says. But in your opinion, what exactly is she saving America from? Because as I've studied and researched politics, the grossness of politics over the last couple years, it's people like her and her dad and the scumbags in Washington that are ruining the country and leading us towards war as often as they can. But maybe I'm seeing this wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Liz Cheney is basically the avatar, the actual representative of the cluelessness of the Republican Party. It doesn't matter what you think of Trump, doesn't matter whether you love him or hate him. He is a manifestation of a deep, deep dissatisfaction with politics as usual, and with specifically the Republican idea that, like the old joke, the Democrats say we're going to destroy the country in 6 months, and the Republicans say, well, destroy it in a year, and then declare that a victory. And I think that people have gotten sick of that. Nobody, really, it's true that almost nobody has taken account of Donald Trump and said, let's put Donald Trump aside. What are the people who are voting for Donald Trump saying? What have they noticed? And how is it possible that we're responsible? It is the one thing that no politician seems to have confronted, just to say, okay, I don't like Trump, or I do like Trump, whatever he thinks. But these voters are trying to tell us something. And as far as I'm concerned, after 60 years of being told by every media outlet, every politician, almost all, even the Republican politicians, that their country was garbage, that their faith was garbage, that their culture was garbage, that the things they loved were garbage, that their color of their skin was garbage. After being told this for 60 years, I think sending Donald Trump was their nicest possible response. They could have shown up with pitchforks and torches, and it would have been, to some degree, useless but justified. And so I think that the Republican Party simply has not come to terms with why its brand was shattered by Trump. And all they can think of, Trump just gets in their head and he's all they can think about. But really what they should do is put Trump aside and say, okay, what are these people trying to tell us? And how can we respond in a responsible way? And Liz Cheney is just, as I say, the avatar of that cluelessness.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Andrew. I never thought about that. Okay, let's extract Donald Trump, set him to the side, and what is the messaging from the people that actually are sick of the politicians, that wanted a business person, that wanted somebody who thought differently? And again, whether you like or love Donald Trump is up to you, but that messaging of I've been forgotten, I'm being overtaxed, I'm sick of these endless wars, our education system is captured and broken. Like that's really an interesting way to think about it. But you believe it's Liz Cheney who's like tone deaf to the millions and millions, tens of millions of people that voted for somebody like Trump, who had a different message than the traditional, oh, we'll help you with your business and avoid taxation, and the other guy is evil. You're saying that feedback is the valuable, that's the hidden pearl that they just keep avoiding looking at.
Yeah, it's like reading the Wall Street Journal. There are many great writers at the Wall Street Journal, so I don't want to be too hard on them. But basically, their idea is the borders should be open because we need the cheap workers. As long as business is going well, we don't want to bother with any of this culture war stuff. And meanwhile, you're sending your kid to school and they're telling him that he should be queer or should be transgender or whatever they're telling him. That matters. That stuff matters. And the thing about Donald Trump, and listen, I have many misgivings about Donald Trump, especially now. I think he's a different man now than he was when he was first elected. But despite my misgivings, the fact that he is so belligerent that he will say anything, that he is not afraid of being called names. They just bounce off him like the missiles off Godzilla's skin. That is what inspires people because they're tired of being afraid. They're Americans. They're tired of being told, well, if I point out that this guy in a dress is a guy, I'm somehow hateful. If I point out that, gee, the people who keep blowing up places are a member of a certain faith, I'm told I'm Islamophobic. If I point out that there's high crime in black neighborhoods, I'm a racist. I'm just telling the truth. I just want to tell the truth. And Trump represents that freedom to them.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, that is very interesting. Biden and his administration, his team, have wanted to put Joseph Robinette Biden's legacy up on this pedestal as the green president that changed America for the better. But then he skips the climate change conference, sends Kamala Harris, who knows nothing about anything really. Why did he milk $7.5 billion of American taxpayer money for electric car charging stations, and he's built exactly 0 of them in 2 years? Like, so what is going on with this hypocrisy? And then where the heck is our money going? Is it just sitting in a bank account earning 5% to go towards the national debt, or what is going on?
Well, these are bribes. I mean, they're money that's being funneled into businesses. People don't want electric vehicles. They don't want to spend that extra money. They don't want to only drive as far as the plug will allow them to go. They like their cars. They want their cars. Gas is still the cheapest way to travel. And on top of this, in spite of everything, they realize that climate change is not an existential threat, or if it is, we can't do anything about it. I mean, this is the thing. The climate is changing. There's perfectly good reasons to believe that some human activity contributes to that. Every report, when you read the report, as opposed to the journalist reporting on the report, says this is going to cost us a certain amount of money to deal with, but it's not that much money, and it can be done. I mean, there are things that have to, safety measures that have to be taken into account. And of course, I think everybody agrees. This is where they get you kind of. Everybody agrees that we should take care of our climate, take care of our planet. Nobody's an anti-conservationist. We're just anti-environmentalists because they're crazy. So I can't help but feel that the climate hysteria, you have, only 5 years, the polar bears are dying, the ice is all melting, no one can breathe, the house that I just bought on the coast, if I'm John Kerry, is going to be flooded while I'm flying around in my private jet. All of this stuff is garbage. And one can't help feeling that it's garbage with a reason. It means it centralizes power. It gives more and more power over our energy supplies to the government. It gives them reasons to tax us and reasons to send money to their friends and all these things. It's just a corrupt international system. And again, this is not dismissing, good work people can do on cleaning up the environment. So I just feel that this is such a ripoff. And I think young people especially are very, very susceptible to it. And they're susceptible to it because it offers meaning in lives that have lost their religion, lost their faith, lost their traditions, lost any knowledge of why this country is special or why it was founded. They have nothing to attach their lives to that are bigger than themselves. Even marriage seems beyond them. And now you have, we're going to save the climate by praying to the sun, sacrificing children to the sun or whatever they're doing. And so this has become the thing to replace racism as a means of ginning up hysteria and acquiring power.
Yeah. I read, maybe a month ago that like 30% of the youth have no idea what gender they are. Like I grew up being told you're a child of God. Boom, there's your identity. Like there's a divine creator that made you. We don't know what it really is, but there's some kind of intelligent design behind the universe, the solar system, and planet Earth, right? Great, that was great for me, right? But these kids that I see growing up now, they don't know what gender they are, and they don't know where they're going in life. Like you say, that it's like the idea of marriage is like so foreign. But the thing that threw me off the most in this article was that over like 50% of people over the age of 25 have anxiety about climate change. Like
Yeah, well, wouldn't
that.
you? I mean, most people are not reading the headline, the news that carefully. People like us who involve ourselves in the news and get, look, they question a news story that we see. Most people glance down the headlines of the paper and occasionally read an article, maybe watch a news program on television. And if you're constantly being told by men in suits and women in nice dresses that the climate is going to kill you, you start to believe that the climate is going to kill you. They can't all be lying, can they? And I think the fact that they, in fact, are all lying and all using, attaching themselves to this hysteria is tough to believe, but it's actually true. And so I don't blame them for being anxious, and I don't blame them for being lost. I mean, the transgender stuff has induced mental illness. It's amazing to me that an academic who's unhappy with the fact that she's a lesbian can declare that gender is some kind of fluid deal, which is it's one of the rare things in science. It's actually black and white, an actual black and white duality. There are men and there are women. Occasionally there are bizarre people who are caught in the middle, very few. But just because somebody is born with one leg doesn't mean human beings are two-legged creatures. We are creatures who are male and female. Some professor writes an academic book saying, no, you can choose whatever gender. And everybody goes like, okay, that must be the case. And it's sad. It has to do with our corrupt media, this corrupt system where the media doesn't challenge anything. It doesn't debate anything. It simply declares things to be true in the name of the movement. And then it declares that you're a bigot if you don't accept that they're true. Transgenderism is a nonsense. This guy, Richard Levine, who calls himself Rachel Levine, should be in Arkham Asylum with all the other crazy Batman villains. The guy's a nutcase, and it's just shameful that we are perpetrating this on children. It's a shameful, evil, horrible thing, and this massive machine telling you that if you don't participate in this wickedness, you're the bad guy is effective. You get demonetized on YouTube, you get censored on Facebook. It's difficult for an ordinary person to speak up when they're called down to HR and told you're fired if you don't use the wrong pronoun for someone.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a really good point. This media-induced anxiety, where it's like, you remember when CNN was like going downhill? Well, they still are, but they were really going downhill. And that was his name, Jeff Zucker is like, wait a minute, people are really paying attention to CNN when it comes to COVID killing people. Let's put a death ticker at the bottom. Literally, like they'd be talking about like a new polar bear is being born, and at the bottom, 1 million people have died of COVID. 1,000,001, 1,053. Oh my gosh, it's going up faster than the national debt, right? Now, imagine doing that with climate change. Hillary Clinton said earlier this week, it's time that we start reporting on how many people are dying from climate change related issues. Like she wants a death ticker count on CNN about how many people are dying because the temperature's 1 degree warmer in Florida. Or
the funny thing is the number of people who've died from climate related events has dropped 100% in the last, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, maybe it's 40 years, 50 years, but it's just plummeted because we use fossil fuels. We have so much wealth that we're able to build firmer buildings, stronger buildings, and all kinds of safety measures that have stopped climate from killing people. So she wouldn't, I don't think she'd be very happy if the ticker was honest, but we don't have to fear that the ticker would be honest anyway.
Yeah. You've been fairly vocal about our universities being captured and indoctrinating children to hate our country. But now, ever since the Israel attack on October 7th, these top universities, we've realized that they've been teaching our youth to not only hate our country, but to hate Israel, to hate Jewish people. Did it come as a shock to you that this would be the reaction when Israel was attacked, or would you have guessed that these top university presidents, faculty, and students would be pro-Hamas, backing Palestine, blaming the rape victim for being raped. Did any of this come as a surprise to you?
It not only didn't come as a surprise to me, I told my wife it was coming more than a year ago, when they started to use the term gender affirming care for the act of butchering a child to turn his body into a costume of the opposite sex. An act of evil. I mean, that's an act of evil. I remarked to my wife, the Jew hatred is only a little ways away. And that may seem unconnected, but it's not. It's all one thing. I mean, people, this is something that people don't like to hear, and it's something that they dismiss. People hate Jews because they hate the biblical God. They hate the God of the Bible. And everybody has some reason why they think Jews are hated. Well, they're successful, or they're rich. They've been killed when they were poor. They've been killed when they weren't successful. They've been killed when they've tried to assimilate. They've been killed when they've tried to keep to themselves. None of those reasons that are given for hating Jews are the reason people hate Jews. They hate Jews because Jews represent the God of the West. I mean, he's the God of all, but it is through the West and through Christendom that the Bible has taken hold. And they feel that if they can erase the Jews, they'll erase that God who makes them feel ashamed of what they are and what they're, and what, ashamed of their brokenness. So when you start butchering children, when you start telling children that they can change their sex and we're going to cut your body up, there's literally 0% science that this can happen, that anything like that can happen. You're acting in a godless world. And I think that people have been taught that they can't talk about God and godlessness unless there's some evangelical preacher, which I'm not. They've been told that to talk about God is wrong because some people don't believe in God. And yet I would talk about gravity even if somebody didn't believe in gravity. The fact is, even if there's no actual God, which there is, but even if there weren't, he would still be a psychological fact. People would still have God in their heads, and they would still feel shame and feel constrained by their moral sense. And that's what they're trying to break away from. The whole idea that there is something called morality, that it's not an illusion of the human mind, that it actually exists, is difficult for people who want everything to be equal, who think like, you hear people say, oh, you're slut shaming me, or you're fat shaming me, instead of saying, I'm a fat slut and I feel ashamed, which is the truth. That's the truth. It's not that anybody is shaming them. It's that they feel ashamed because they have a moral sense, which is the image of God within them. And so all of these things are connected by the fact that we are God-made creatures with a God-made conscience and a God-made shame because we don't fulfill that conscience. And the Jews just become the target every single time. Notice this, the explosion of anti-Semitism on leftist campuses is only an extension of wokeness. It's wokeness is anti-Semitism in disguise. But there's anti-Semitism on the right too. And when I tweet something or say something against the anti-Semites on the left, I get attacked by the anti-Semites on the right, who are supposed to hate everything the left stands for. They hate everything except for this, except for hating Jews. It's a universal hatred because I think man is a broken animal. He's a sinful guy who doesn't like to feel the shame of his sinfulness. And I just think that's the truth. And again, it would be true even if there were no God. There is a God. It would be true even if there weren't, because it's in our heads. It's where we live. And I just think that, it's so interesting to me that the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century, was marked by extraordinary bloodshed perpetrated by godless philosophies, by communism, which is an utterly godless philosophy, and by Nazism, which was a pagan philosophy. It was, a rejection of Christianity as well. The Nazis told the preachers of Germany, we are not worshiping Jesus anymore, we're worshiping Hitler. So after all that bloodshed, we come away, and what does the American academics on the left say? No, oh, they're right, there was no God. You're literally Hitler, but we believe in everything they believed in. We believe in hating Jews. We believe in butchering children. We believe in all the things the Nazis and the communists did. We believe, but you're the bad guys. It makes no sense unless you figure God into the mix, unless you start to think about what we're actually reacting to, because we're obviously not reacting to the facts. We're obviously not reacting to history. We're reacting to the presence of a spiritual truth that we hate because it makes us feel ashamed.
Oof, interesting. That's deep stuff. I'm gonna have.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go
Yeah,
deep.
no. It's this is why I like having different guests on, because they bring different perspectives, where it's like, okay, Genesis says that male and female were created. Well, if God created male and female, and we want to push on people this idea that we're the same, or that you can switch, then we have to get rid of that God. We have to get rid of that idea. Switching out the image of God for the image of something else. Like, you could go on and on down these societal issues. And it's all of this Marxist idea of get God out of society, and just let the human animal be its worst natural self. But every time that happens, we end up with these horrible dictators. I mean, that people say that religion is the worst thing, that it's killed more people. Like, okay, religion, has been the cause of wars and bad things, but socialism, communism in the last 100 years was the bloodiest century in human existence. And it wasn't because of religion. It was because of lack of those moral values. It was removing these ideals. And then all the evil came in, from Mao to Stalin to Hitler to Mussolini. It was all about removing power, or removing God, and grabbing that power for themselves. You've given me a
Yes,
lot to think about.
and I would just point out that there have been obviously wars that were fought in the name of religion, but I would just point out that there were no more wars after Christianity than there were before Christianity. I mean, people fight wars. That's what they do. That's one of the things. I mean, if you read Shakespeare, he just divides the world into war and love. Those are the two things that people do. They fight wars, and then in between they create babies, and and so while people kill in the name of religion, they fight wars in the name of religion, they cheat, they molest people in the name of religion. They do all those things without religion too. The general effect of Christianity has been to build the fairest, freest, richest civilization that's ever existed on earth. Nowhere have women been treated with the respect and empowerment and honor that they're treated in Christendom, in Christian countries. That didn't exist before. There was no place. Now, some feminists can sometimes find some tribe somewhere where women weren't oppressed. Didn't exist, in speaking generally, anywhere until the veneration of Mary, and the idea. Remember that God didn't just make male and female; He made male and female in His image, both male and female in His image, and that changed the way people thought about women. And it took hundreds of years. It's imperfect. We still haven't figured it out, but still, those ideas that women are people, that they deserve human rights, those are Christian ideas, Christian-based ideas. And so, all I would say is that the human part of religion can be as bloody as the human part of anything else, but the God part of religion, I'll stand by that, because it's actually been a positive event in the history of mankind.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this or not, but a few nights back, Representative Pramila Jayapal was interviewed on CNN. She made some interesting points about Israel. She made some interesting points about Palestine. But then she left me shocked when she refused to condemn that Hamas was using rape and sexual assault against Israelis. Dana from CNN gave her multiple opportunities to denounce, condemn, at least pretend to be horrified by the awful acts of violence that we're now learning about. 7 men raping 1 woman, what they were doing to old grandma. I mean, it's like disgusting stuff. Why do you think that she is so pro-Palestine, on the verge of defending Hamas, and yet back at home she is the greatest defender of women? Women can be independent. Women don't need men. Women should have the right to abortion right up until the baby is born. Be whatever gender you want. Be single. Be a lesbian. Be transgender. Whatever it is. all of the things that Hamas would kill them for, she's defending. Why do you think she wouldn't even condemn all this violence against these young women? It was
Well,
odd to me.
if you read Solzhenitsyn, who wrote brilliantly about this, he wrote about how ideology, in order to commit mass murder, you need an ideology that turns good into evil, that turns evil into good. I'm sorry, that transfers the values. And that's what the left has now developed. They have an ideology that makes evil good. That says butchering a child is a good. That says, sexual freedoms that degrade you are good. And now that says raping women to death, desecrating their dead bodies, dragging them through streets where not just the terrorists, but every damn person in Gaza was cheering on these absolutely brutal acts. It says this is okay, and it's okay because the poor Palestinians are oppressed. Well, the poor Palestinians are actually not oppressed. They're oppressed by themselves. They're oppressed by their own ideology, and they're oppressed by the fact that they're being used and have been used since the inception of the state of Israel as a tool for attacking Israel. Israel, the idea that Israel is the only country that must be perfect in order to be allowed to exist is anti-Semitic on its face. Many countries were invented, many borders were changed, many people were displaced in the wake of the two world wars in the 20th century. One of the countries that was formed was Israel. Some people were displaced in that time, but many Arabs welcomed the Israelis and said, this is their land. I mean, there were people then who said, even as a Muslim, we welcome these people. This is a specific reading of Islam that is attacking the Israelis. And because the idea that the left has developed is that the problem is the West, the problem is freedom, the problem is the individual. And if all those things can be replaced, and the problem is the Christian God, and if all those things can be replaced, then everybody will be equal and we'll all be free. You had Obama, who to my mind is one of the most sinister presidents we've ever had, a man who was a true Jew hater. He went to a church that preached Jew hatred. He supported the Iranians, who are dedicated to the destruction of Israel. They only want to destroy Israel first, then they want to destroy the rest of us. This is an idea that somehow the West has colonized the world and the world has to be given back to its indigenous people. Well, everybody has colonized everybody. The indigenous people were killing each other and taking each other's lands before, the Europeans arrived. The only people who have colonized with any sort of mercy or kindness or grace or freedom is the West. I think that you can't be against colonization because it's just a human function. It's something that happens when people become powerful. They spread out. There were wars. They take over countries. That's not the way I'd like the world to work, but it's pretty much the way the world works. And so they're now, because they have focused on this one thing as a way of attacking the West, they can't see the evil that's being committed. They can't allow themselves to see it. So these people go in and commit atrocities that we haven't seen really since the Holocaust. And it's okay. It's okay. But when the Jews go back and say, well, now we have to kill the people who did this to us, suddenly it's a problem. The silence of the feminists on these acts of rape is unbelievable. Back during the first Iraq War, the first fight during the first George Bush, it's all very confusing, but I remember watching the soldiers march into Iraq, and the war was over in like a week. It was, one of the great triumphs of the American military. And I remember as the soldiers came in, some of the people threw themselves at the soldiers' feet. And the soldiers were horrified, and they lifted the people up, saying, "Don't kneel to me." That's America. I don't think that's ever happened before. I don't think countries have ever gone in and conquered other countries and then set them free and then said, "Don't kneel to me. I'm just a person. We're just here to do a job, and then we're going home." It's unique. It is unique to have a country as powerful as ours that could be an empire that hasn't become an empire. And instead of celebrating that, they find all our human flaws, which are all real. I mean, I'm not saying this is a perfect country. That'd be ridiculous. And they use that to condemn the highest point of human civilization, which is the culture of Europe from 1500 to 1914 and the culture of America from 1776 till about 2008. This is the high point of civilization. And they say, well, it's white people. Who cares? I don't care if they're pink people. I don't care what color they are. And America is not just white people. It's always been a mix of all kinds of people. It's an idea. It's a culture that is better than other ideas. And it should be cheered. It should be spread. It should be spread by any peaceful means necessary. And instead, they have developed this self-hating ideology that just sees it as to blame no matter where it appears. And it appears in Israel because Israel is essentially a Western country. It's a democracy. It's free. Women are free. Muslims are free. Muslims serve at the highest level of government, the highest level of the military. Muslims are entertainers. Muslims, are treated well. When Muslims get to Israel, they're shocked at how well they're treated. They're treated better in Israel than they are in many Muslim countries. That's what they hate. They hate that freedom. They hate that Westernization because it reflects well on us, and they hate themselves.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, final question. Then I want to hear about the House of Love and Death, your new book out. Do you think that the Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, announced that next week they will vote in the House of Representatives on whether to officially open an impeachment case, issue hundreds of subpoenas, and have different committees dig in. I have found the Republicans to be very weak, and they like talk a big game, but they don't seem to get much done in just about every area. I don't know if it's because they're just, they don't know what to make of Donald Trump among themselves, or if this is deeper than that. But do you think that they're going to actually move for impeachment and get the votes, or just like with wanting to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, there's going to be Republicans that keep these ding dongs in office?
Yeah, it's a good question. I hesitate to make a prediction because their majority is so small. To open an impeachment inquiry, I mean, to say, it would give them subpoena power, which would be important. They keep saying there's no proof that Joe Biden profited off Hunter's business. And it may be true that there's no proof, but there's plenty of evidence. And so to bring the evidence before the American people in an impeachment hearing is not a bad idea, especially after Trump was impeached twice for nothing. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to restore normal order. They're trying to say that the Democrats acted irresponsibly. We're not going to do that. And their majority is so small that if they lose even 2 or 3 votes, they're not going to be able to get the vote they need. So it is the problem with the Republican Party is that in Washington, they are surrounded by the media, and they come to feel that the media is the people, and the media is nobody. The media is nobody. The media is a corporate entity of pure power trying to suppress the people. That's what the media is. And that's one of the reasons, if there was anything I agreed 1,000% with Donald Trump about, it was the dishonesty of the media. If there was anyone who deserved Donald Trump, it was the media. If there was anybody who deserved to be insulted and denigrated and kicked from pillar to post, it was the media. They keep talking about the First Amendment. I love the First Amendment. They have no respect for the First Amendment. All they do is try to silence dissent on social media. The media surrounds Republicans and makes them feel that if they take a step wrong, they're going to be destroyed, and the people are going to vote as the media tells them. That's why they're so afraid. And I have a lot of sympathy for Mike Johnson, as I did for Kevin McCarthy. It's a terrible job being Speaker of the House. It's hard, and it's not a job where people say, hooray for Mike. That's not going to happen because you got to deal with all these cats and kind of wrangle them together. So I don't know. I can't predict whether they will actually impeach Joe Biden, but they should certainly, in my opinion, they have enough evidence to pursue this with genuine aggression, genuine, intensity. Now they seem to have been doing that to some degree. They haven't been entirely, placid, passive, but they don't have the votes to convict him if they impeach him. So I can sort of understand why they don't want to take the risk. And we're moving into this election season that's going to be so tumultuous that you can only hope it's not going to be violent. So I don't know. I don't know where those balloons are
Yeah,
coming
you
from.
said violent and balloons popped
The
up.
balloons went up. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think that they should pursue this inquiry as aggressively as they can, because clearly Biden is a dishonest man. He's always been a corrupt,
Yeah,
you know,
I
machine.
just want the truth. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
just
me
tell
too.
us the truth, you know,
Right.
and but we only get half truths.
Yeah.
Um Now, Andrew, as I was researching you and compiling the list of questions that I thought would make for a great conversation, which I think it has been, I kept getting distracted by how many people were praising your book, The House of Love and Death. And I was like, okay, set that to the side. We got to get into politics. Then, I've been reading this all night, you know. So lots of really great reviews online. What is this book about? I don't know anything about it.
Well, this is the funny thing, there are a lot of conservatives who want to write novels or make movies. I'm a novelist who happens to be a conservative. So I've been a novelist all my life. This is what all I ever wanted to do in my life. And in fact, I never wanted to be in front of a camera. I just wanted to be in a room by myself creating what I consider to be works of art. I work in the mystery genre. I was inspired as a child by Raymond Chandler and his Philip Marlowe novels. And I've reached a point in my life where I've sort of wanted to make a sort of summing up statement. And I invented a character named Cameron Winter for a book called When Christmas Comes. It was a Christmas novel. And I thought, this is the character I would like to write an entire series about. I've never written a series. I've written trilogies, but I've never written a whole series. And I decided that Cameron Winter, who is a bad guy who is trying to become a good guy. He is a guy who worked as a government assassin, and he now wants to become something else. He works as a college professor. He wants to become a better man. And he's living in a country like our country that is coming apart at the seams. And so it's my way of exploring the present moment, of talking about the fact that every show we see that has any kind of manly character in it, the man is an outlaw. It's Breaking Bad, it's The Sopranos, it's The Shield, it's a bad guy. And I wanted to say, well, wait, how do we get from there to a man who is a man, but is not a bad guy anymore? And how does he do it while the country is unraveling all around him? And so that's what these books explored. There have been three of them. That When Christmas Comes, A Strange Habit of Mind was the second one, and this is the third one, The House of Love and Death. They've all been bestsellers, so I'm very happy about that. And this one has been called the best of them by Publishers Weekly, which is our publishing trade magazine. It got a starred review there. It's been an editor's pick on Amazon. It was not just a USA Today bestseller. It was number 8 on the PW bestseller list, which is the most honest fiction list we have. We know it was kept off the New York Times list because it was selling better than any of the books at the bottom of their list. So it should have been on the Times list, but it wasn't. And so it's really been gratifying. And I've already just the other day handed in the 4th book in the series. So I'm hoping people will pick up the series and understand that these are not conservative novels. These are novels written by a novelist who's a conservative, which is a big difference. They're not preaching at you. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're just telling stories, mystery stories. And this one is about a home in a very nice gated community where someone walks in and wipes the family out. And Cameron Winter tries to find out what's happening. And in doing that, he starts to unravel a world of corruption, not just in this gated community, but in the poorer neighborhoods all around it. And so it's, again, looking at a country that's coming apart at the seams and at a man who's trying very hard to become a different kind of man than he's been in the past.
Okay, well, you've got me. I wanna listen to it. I
Well, let me know
literally
what you think.
I didn't know anything about it, but as I was compiling my list, I was like, gosh, this book just keeps showing up. And like I've got to get him to talk about it. So I'm gonna put a link down below so that people can check
Thank you.
out the series. You say the 4th book is ready to go.
It's at the editors now. I just sent it in.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Excellent. Well, so folks, if you guys like it, this is not the end. You know, like on Netflix, you're like, will there be a season 3? Will there be? You already know there's a 4th book that's going to be coming out. This has been a great conversation on difficult society topics, and I appreciate your honesty and your thinking and sharing your thoughts. If people want to follow you, Andrew, what is the best way to do that?
Well, they can either come on andrewklavan.com, which is my website, which has everything I'm doing. It's Klavan. or they can come on X at Andrew Klavan and follow me there.
Okay, great. I'll make sure to put that down below. Thank you very much for coming on and taking time out of your day. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.